to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Number 2, we will call to order the June 18th Village Board meeting. It is 6:02. 3, roll call shows all trustees are present. Staff is present except for Chief Barr and Library Director Alley, and they have been excused. And our attorney has also been excused. 4, agenda changes. Are there any? Okay. 5, consent agenda. A, June 4th, 2026 regular board meeting minutes. B, presentation of accounts and other claims against the village. If there are no questions, I would need a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Roll call, Jim.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. 6, pre-registered citizens to be heard. Are there any?
Claire Abbott's 111 South Nash.
Hi, I was just gonna comment on the downtown zoning code for auto service topic. I don't know if this is specific to the historic downtown zoning code or, but I did go to the meetings like 8 to 10 years ago when the historic district stuff was developed pretty specifically and thoughtfully. And I do remember an emphasis on not having more auto stuff. And further back, like when I got the old police station, part of that process was that we would not do any automotive stuff there. So there's sort of a history of like, we don't want automotive repair downtown, especially, I mean, our historic district is so small. So if it's the image in the packet with the garage with the 3, doors, I don't think that would be good to have right in the downtown. A building like that, like speaking from where I am in the old police station, it's very hard to turn something with 3 big garage doors or 2 big garage doors into like retail or, approachable downtown historic type of architecture. So I think if that kind of structure was built on the corner, that's what would be stuck with, and it's going to be hard to really adapt that into anything else. So I think it would be great at a lot of other places in town, but not at that site. And I guess while I'm on the historic downtown topic, just being that like the historical society is getting going too, just the idea of, steering projects in a historical direction when there's the opportunity to do that as leadership, I think is really important. I think in the zoning code, there's like references to using different materials and colors and stuff like that. One of the things I'm also, concerned about with the Memorial Square is the like very colorful shade sails. I don't think that reads as very historic. If you start thinking about that, different materials and colors and everything, symbolize different things. It doesn't read as historic, it looks like a playground. So I think there's like subtle ways to make choices that make the historic district really sing, but also letting different things happen does have a outcome too, and maybe making it seem less historic and quaint downtown. So that's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
No.
Okay. 7, committee reports. A, library board. Carrie?
Nothing new from our meeting.
Okay. 8, unfinished business from previous meetings. There is none. 9, new business. A, presentation of 2026 audit, Hawkins Ash.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Amber Ebert from Hawkins Ash, and I will be going through a summary of the financials. So to start, we issued an unmodified audit opinion, which is the best opinion for an audit. And then we just like to mention that everything is presented fairly and materially correct. This year for adjusting journal entries, there was 41, and last year there was 37, so stayed right around the same, which is what we like to see. We recommend just trying maybe 1 or 2 on your own, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions on how to do it, but otherwise everything stays pretty consistent, it makes our job easy. Of those 41, only 17 were what we considered to be material. So these were related to property tax roll, special assessments, deferred revenues, capital outlay, depreciation expense, accumulated depreciation, due to, due froms, fund balance, principal and interest expense, accounts payable, closing the ARPA fund, grants, and then capital outlay expense. And then we had 11 management advisory comments this year. Only one was new. This was for GASB 103, financial reporting model improvements. Simply an FYI that there is a new GASB coming out next year, and that it will be, the changes will be made on next year's financial report. Other than that, the other 10 are the exact same as last year, so no concerns there. For the general fund, the assigned fund balance increased about 33,000, and the unassigned fund balance decreased about 227,000. And then as the unassigned as a percent of expenditures, this decreased 8% and is now sitting at a negative 5%. And we like to see at least 17%. The way to adjust this would be, there's basically too much money set aside as like planned future projects. So if that were to be decreased, that would help the unassigned as a percent of expenditures increase back to what we would like to see. So right now there is about 156,000 set aside for general government planned projects, 45,000 for public safety projects, public works for 130,000, and then capital projects of 177,000. But overall, the general fund had a net decrease of about $194,000. The top three categories for general fund revenues: taxes accounted for about 42% of total revenues for the year, intergovernmental about 31%, and then public charges for services about 14%. And then for the expenditures, public safety covered about 43%, public works at 26%, and general government at 18%. For the other funds, the debt service fund, the restricted portion, which is set aside for principal and interest payments, increased about 9,000. The special revenue funds, the housing and neighborhood conservation increased $31. The Wisconsin Development Fund grant decreased about 152,000. Subdivision park fees decreased about 24,000. And then for unassigned, the library fund increased about 28,000. And then the American Rescue Grant, we closed that fund, so zero fund balance this year. The capital project funds for TID 6, this increased about 67,000. And then unassigned is capital improvements decreased about 344,000. TID 3 increased 39,000. TID 4 increased 61,000. And then TID 5 decreased 13,000. And then for the water and wastewater, net investment increased 566,000. For the debt retirement, this decreased about 393,000. For the wastewater replacement, this increased about 30,000. And then overall, the water and wastewater unrestricted decreased about 164,000. But that's all I had. Any questions? Yeah.
So you said that we should try to reduce the set aside unassigned in the amounts in the budget for to increase that percentage.
Yes, right
Okay,
now,
so if you decrease that, how do we pay for stuff throughout the year?
that's the problem. Right now you have a general fund balance of 377,000, but 508,000 set aside for projects.
Okay.
So you have essentially $131,000 more than available set aside. So while the fund balance isn't cash per se, it basically just means there's more set aside for planned upcoming projects than what is available. So things will have to be allocated and maybe looked at more importantly, like here's the next 5 years, this is more important, let's move this back 6+ years.
I didn't follow that at all.
They're
So are the funds set aside? You're saying the funds are set aside and there's too much set aside?
They're-
Or there's not enough set aside to cover the projects? Or
It's
what?
not
I don't understand.
actual cash.
Yes,
Fund
okay.
balance is the net of the assets minus any liabilities.
Okay.
But it basically means that, you have too many projects planned and not enough to cover it at the current time.
Okay.
So that, all it would have to be would be, just be, maybe these 3 projects are super important that we wanna do in the next 5 years. Let's reallocate that money and let's do these other 2 projects in 6+ years. If that makes sense. And it could just very much be too, just given, you know,
It's our reserve funds, right?
the.
Assigned.
Assigned, yeah, yeah.
So it's our reserve funds, so when we have that list of, you know, public, or police department donations, all that other one, that's future project plans is in there, they generate interest every year. So basically, those are the assigned fund balance that we have.
Is this married to the CIP?
No.
No, so that's something different, right?
Well, the reserve funds are are basically earmarked funds for the future based on income brought in certain categories, and then in some categories, it's just funds that were assigned, for that use. So like the Veterans Park has a reserve fund that has about 10,000 or so in it that we received back from a, insurance claim that sat in there and generates interest every year. But what's happened is some of our assigned fund or unassigned fund balance basically has been, in my understanding, has been eaten up by a mixture of TID payments, and a few different other payments that we had to do, and not borrowing enough in order to, we've been using cash for that the village has to fund those TIDs. So basically, that's why now we started doing loans and bid and bonds for those TID projects to fund those so that we replenish our fund balance going forward.
So how do we, so that's the correction on this, so that next year's audit, it looks like, okay, you've now improved
There's a
on this?
mixture of different things. So
Okay.
there's that, there's the, one thing is just over budgeting for certain projects, because we've had a few where it's like, we try to get it down to $1,000 amount, and when you're talking a large project, probably should just have it a little extra fluff, right?
Mhm.
And then if it ends up coming in under, then you have a balance that can go back. And so part of it was trying to make it to the cent on some of these, which we don't know cost of anything for next year when it comes to, you know, this gas issue that we have right now with diesel is affecting some of our bids.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Does that piggyback on what you were asking for? Like, so this is what it is, and what are we doing to correct it, or why?
Yeah, I'm still not sure I'm clear on how you correct that.
As far as correcting it, if how you have it set up, which I believe it is that your assigned fund balance is what you have to match what's exactly in these bank accounts essentially. The biggest way really would be, it probably will just remain this negative, this deficit until, you either continue to increase those funds or continue to decrease any liabilities you might have. I guess like, yeah, just cash payments that are being made for projects that you are just paying cash for. Yeah, I guess, cause while it is the fund balance, you can't fully look at it as cash, which is what makes it confusing. So like you still have plenty of cash, but when you net that against all of your outstanding checks and everything still, that's where things get funky kind of.
Okay.
So the biggest thing is just, it might just be several years worth of it looking like this until things kind of start to even out, or the board is able to allocate the assigned portion. So even though you want it to match what's in the bank, you could still just say, well, we only want to set aside a total of $300,000 for this, and then the rest will just be unassigned, which would then increase everything.
So if you wanted to take a 10% reduction, let's say across the board on all of our reserve funds, that would increase the unassigned fund balance, basically. So if the board said they wanted that $130,000 to be at zero, then, and we took it by a percentage across all of the reserve funds, we could do that easily.
So I'm sure I'm very clear. This is very muddled. I'm not an accountant, I'm sorry.
No, understandable.
I'm not even clear as to, do we have, are we accounting that we have too much?
Yeah, you're planning for too many projects and not enough funds to cover these projects essentially.
Okay. So so what you're saying is if nothing changed, nothing from any of the numbers changed, and we do all the projects and all the projects come in at what we estimated, we would have a shortfall.
Correct, yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay, that I understand.
Mixed up kids, yeah.
In another section, it says the village spent $111,100 more than their adopted budget. But what exactly happened there?
So the budget, you are able to amend the budget, 0 times or 1 billion times if you really want to. So basically what we look at is what is published as the budget. If it is less than what you actually expense, then it's just a budget shortfall. So all you would really have to do would be like, all right, let's go amend the budget. We thought it was gonna be 20,000, it ended up being 40,000. Let's just go amend the budget and change it to 40,000. So you're able to do that at any point throughout the year.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, B, discussion and possible action on potential bonus resolution R-11-26.
This was discussed for those who weren't on the board at the time. It was discussed last year with board members on basically the budget when we were doing budget. So that's already in the budget for this year. It was a way to kind of benefit the employees as a nice thing to do for them at this point. We had a smaller raise this year than we normally do. I think it was at 2%. So we cut enough into the budget. We added these in. So it's allocated. So it's not like, if you guys approve this, it's not like we're gonna be over budget for this. Okay, so it was all added in as an amount. So this is up to you guys if you would like to approve it. It's for a $250 bonus in recognition of the anniversary of the United States signing the Declaration of Independence. Is there questions?
I remember when we budgeted for it, so we planned on this.
And you're just doing the 250, you're not doing an additional amount to cover the taxes we'll have to pay on that, correct?
Yeah, it's too
Okay.
hard to kind of get it.
Right.
I initially kind of was trying to do that. It just, there's no way to do it across the board, so everyone was close. So,
Right, right.
that's why in the end, I was just like, the 250 is what we're gonna do, and, it'd be for all, regularly scheduled full-time and part-time employees.
I remember the discussion on bonuses. I don't remember anything specific to like the 250. Did we narrow it down to that scope?
No, I remember 250, because I remember it was
I
250 for
remember
the
the 250.
250th
Right.
anniversary.
Okay, I just bad memory, I guess.
Any other questions? Otherwise, we need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution R-11-26, a resolution authorizing a one-time employee recognition bonus in celebration of the 250th anniversary of the United States of America.
I'll second.
Roll call, Jim.
Aye.
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 Motion carried. C, discussion and possible action on cancellation of July 2nd village board meeting.
The July 2nd village board meeting.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. D, discussion and possible action on 2026 sidewalk replacement bids.
So this was advertised in the New London paper, and I did send it out to a couple different contractors as well. We got 2 bids back. The low bid was from Capital R for $12,085.
Where are we replacing?
Some by the high school, one on Mill Street, one panel. Most of it's by the high school, across the street from the middle school, and then a couple other panels that are around
The big
sewers.
cracks.
Yeah.
Is any of this being assessed to those property owners at all, or?
Just the school district is sharing the cost with us,
Okay.
which was already talked.
That's what I
We
vaguely
usually
remember.
plan that out with them when we are doing stuff with them, and they know about it, they have it in their budget.
And that, it rang a bell, that's why I was
So
asking.
they're gonna pay roughly, I think around.
It's about 90% of the project is this stuff by the school.
Right, so they'll pay around 5,500 or so.
Okay.
It says a quantity of 960. We're replacing 960,
Square feet.
square feet, okay, not 960
No.
blocks. That's a lot.
Usually a good price.
That's a heck of a
I'm like,
deal.
I like the price for that, yeah.
See, can you do the downtowns?
Yeah.
I have a question, kinda not really related, but why are all the sidewalks, all the newer ones, all orange?
Or,
They have all orange streaks through them. When you walk around, even here, these sidewalks, all around high school, they all have orange streaks in them.
I never noticed.
That might be a rust from the equipment, snow equipment.
Maybe.
yeah, probably.
I mean, it's like all the new sidewalks are all turning orange. Yeah, look, I didn't know, there's something in the concrete that makes it turn orange.
Not that I know of.
It's probably the scraping of the sidewalk. It's the best thing I can think of.
Unless they're around manhole covers and the rust is leaking off of those.
No, it's like the entire sidewalk, like, the only ones that aren't orange are the old sidewalks that have like the stone in them.
Huh.
It's all
I
the
do
newer
know
ones.
some of the, if there's metal fabrication on the 88 crosswalks, sometimes those will rust out. That's why some of ours are plastic now. If they're rusted, they'll color it. Because
I just only noticed because when I'm walking in the morning, I see it's like rust, the whole, like,
Is
all the
there
way
s-
down. It's
It
like,
might
specific
be
area?
staining from leaves from the fall too. I don't know.
I'm just curious if anyone else noticed that, if anyone else walked through town.
Mhm.
Gonna have to take a look.
Oh, that's right.
I noticed a few areas with it, but I figured it was probably the
I never
I
noticed.
was just curious what it was. I didn't know if there was something in the concrete that's making it turn or.
Not that I know of.
shouldn't be.
I'll make a motion to approve the sidewalk replacement project quote for Capital R concrete and coatings not to exceed the amount of $12,085.
I'll second that.
Roll call, Jim.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carried. E, discussion and possible action on Monster Mash program downtown.
So I met with the Foxwoods Chamber, and one of their new members basically, on their board had done this similar type thing in Fremont in the past. They go downtown Appleton and do a, program down there, sometimes at the bazaar, the night bazaar they did. And the idea would be to bring them in here, basically on the 30th of October, which is right around the time the Main Street is completed. Some of the stuff we would still have to work out detail-wise. You know, part of the idea is to kind of block off the downtown, Pine Street to the alley, and then Nash to Mill, basically would have to be kind of blocked off with entrances, and then you could allow for open intoxicants and people to kind of come in and do that. So one of the thoughts was to allow for the local bars in that area to be the ones that could be for the alcohol sales, but they do bring in outside vendors, and they allow for anyone local who wants to be in there to be a vendor as well. But they do bring in some food trucks as well and stuff like that. But the alcohol itself would be the only thing that would be kind of something we talked about with this downtown businesses in that area.
Is that what you mean by current discussions contemplate limiting alcohol sales to businesses located within the downtown zoning district?
Correct.
So what you're saying is if you have an alcohol license and you're between Nash and Mill, so we're possibly limiting and I get
Right.
it, but come back to this board, so we're only gonna let those businesses
Sell.
So, but if you're beyond Mill Street, so I think of like Hardtails.
Hardtails would be part of included.
Included in that,
Yeah.
okay. All right, but that would all come back here.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question is if this is, I don't want to spend a bunch of time and staff time planning this with them and getting this planned out and then handing it to you guys and you guys being completely against it.
The only concern I have, Nathan, and I'm
Right.
just gonna cut to the chase.
Yeah.
We have a lot of broken beer bottles.
Yep.
Okay, in an empty lot.
Yep.
And in the alley especially.
Yep.
Broken beer bottles because of open intoxicants that are coming out of the establishments, all right? And there's a reason why, but that's my only concern is like, village should not be in charge of cleanup on this. The cleanup on this is the chamber. So I would want the chamber to take the lead on that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're gonna say the village is, yeah, we're gonna help, but
We would help the next day. They should be cleaning most of it.
Yeah.
There's conversations we can have too with the business owners because we don't necessarily know how we want to necessarily do it. If we want to have those businesses have, stands out in that area is probably the idea. And then they would be serving, we can limit it potentially to just being,
Well,
plastic bottle or
and
plastic
somebody
cans.
saying,
cans.
okay, you're beyond the barricades.
I would absolutely push that.
Yeah,
Yeah, or you're
Yeah,
beyond the barricades
right.
instead of me finding all the beer bottles and cans or plastic in my front yard like I do now.
right.
So,
And
yeah,
I'm not going to say it's not going to happen
correct.
because it's
But the chamber should be in charge of that, and if there's anybody
Right.
monitoring that, as a bar owner, can they be responsible? That they shouldn't have to be, right? Because it's being served outdoors. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the goal would be to retain it all.
Yeah.
Obviously, and that's kind of the stuff that I know I've talked with the Fox West Chamber on one was the bottles and how we wanted to do that, how we wanted to, if the downtown bar just wanted to just have some stands out there and then they all split the funds and pool it, or
Mhm.
if they want to have their own stands and compete. Those are a few things that we kind of discussed as well. We'd have to do an amendment to the liquor
That's-
licenses that would come back here. So I think, I just wanted to make sure that you guys were on board with this type of an event.
What happens if the downtown project is not complete?
I was just
Yeah.
thinking.
I know, I had thought of that too.
I mean,
So we have about a 2-week area where it wouldn't be an issue. So there's 2 weeks to the end is when the county is supposed to come in and pave. So if there was an issue where there was 2 weeks of delay or whatever, at that point, we could always potentially swap it to the alley in Pine Street. It's not as ideal, and it's not as nice, and it's gonna be, but that would be the alternative.
And they do technically have it written in their contract that they have to start paying a fee if they're not completed by 10:30.
1031.
There's your-
That's
there's
what
your
I'm
beer
saying.
sale,
It's
right?
one day after, this is the day before.
The last week, they're doing markings, so pavement markings, they're doing sign installation. So there's not, even if
You're
that
gonna be
week.
doing traffic control anyways.
Right,
for that
so it's not if that doesn't get done, it's not like this is an issue. I think the issue would be is if it's gravel and it's leveled and it's not paved. That would be the issue.
Think of how gross New London was for a while there with all the gravel, could you imagine?
right.
Yeah, no, I'm game for
Yeah,
this, I
sounds
love
like
this, I just don't want it to
a game.
become a village primarily an organizing event, because we've had that before where there was like the 4th of July thing. Remember
No.
this, Jeannie, the 4th of July thing, and then it became like this big drag on the staff. You know, and I wouldn't want that. I would want, the chamber does it, the village, the permits, everything there, and you work with the liquor license, but then there's the chambers in charge of cleanup, they're in charge of all that.
But it does say in partnership with several
Mhm.
local businesses, so we could stress to the businesses, since they are benefiting from this, they also have to help clean up the next
Mhm.
day.
It's just, I don't want this to be a drag
No.
on staff.
I think
So-
it will be an impact somewhat on staff. I'm not gonna say it's not gonna be, because I think there's gonna be some stuff where public works, admin staff are gonna have to kind of think through a bunch of this, because we haven't had one in the downtown. We wanna make sure that there's
Wow.
not issues, because if there's issues, then we're gonna have a problem.
And it's a Friday,
Right.
and now we're also shutting this road down at noon, and the businesses are impacted too, you know?
Right, but, I mean, their estimate is 1,000 people coming
I
in,
get-
which is
I get
probably
you.
gonna be more of an impact, more of a benefit than
Correct.
a loss for them. I don't wanna say that there's not gonna be a lot of staff time. I think in order for it to go off without a problem, I think there needs to be some. I don't think it's gonna be it's not like we're gonna be running. It's more of, we need to think through a few things, we might need to have another officer on or so.
DPW staff on Saturday for, yeah,
We
that's
already-
what I worry about is.
Well, and we probably would have some DPW staff on Saturday, because I'm not gonna take the chance that there's a bunch of broken glass downtown. I'd rather have it cleaned up, and then, you know, we can deal with the repercussions after. I think it would be a good idea to go forward with this, just because for the longest time, this is what we've been stressing, is
Yes.
these are the benefits of downtown, and it would be a really nice thing to be able to utilize that. When someone else is gonna do all the planning and setting up for the actual entertainment portion, where the only thing we're kind of gonna try thinking through is what we need for blocking off, what we need for personnel, for
And they're doing all the marketing, so.
yeah, one of the businesses is gonna be doing a lot of the marketing for,
Okay.
as a sponsor. And they're gonna get a bunch of sponsors, about $15,000 worth of sponsorships is what they need to fund the actual program.
So
I think
this
it's a great way to
isn't
show
going
off.
to be
Oh,
the same
The
time as,
new construction
Yeah,
that's
I think
done.
it's great,
it's a
but
great way to.
Oh, it's gonna be a cool pop-off for that.
Do you have any
Yeah.
staff that are like interested in something, like,
I'll get you.
that would take an interest in helping?
I've got,
I'll just
I'm
put
one,
it in.
I was gonna say.
On the table a few times.
my family is
I know
really
it's a lot
into
of work,
that
but
holiday.
I closed
Um,
downtown.
I know.
I know a lot of the, so I think Wolf River Bank is one of the sponsors that's gonna be, and they're gonna probably have staff there. And I know there's a few admin staff that I know would be interested.
I think you just ask for volunteers, even kids from the school to get in their hours.
Well,
Would
right.
also be a great thing
Well,
on Saturday
so they
to
have
clean
a-
up.
They have
That's actually.
volunteer groups that they're gonna utilize to do a lot of the, like, other stuff. I think for our purposes, it would just be for kind of managing the event
Right,
somewhat
right,
from.
right.
Do you know when the Hortonville homecoming is?
Or if there's a home football game.
And I'm looking right now to
or-
see if there's a home football game.
You know, I'm for it. I've done this before. I know it's a lot of work.
Right.
We've closed downtown before. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And does anybody know how successful they've been at doing this in Fremont or wherever else they've done it?
Yeah, they basically have been, they said they couldn't do it at Alonzo, because that was kind of one we discussed as
Right.
well. Just because they have a good following that comes with, and then there's also locals, and this is the first one that is gonna be free, for people to attend, where in the past they had a fee, where we don't have that. So, that was kind of the other thing, so they're expecting about 1,000. Even if it's a little less,
Right.
it's, yeah.
And that homecoming was brought up.
Homecoming is probably not gonna work.
It's usually not that late in
I was gonna say, that's kinda
October.
late for
I was trying to look
homecoming.
on their website to see when homecoming, because
It's
it's usually,
usually
you got a
the
parade
second-
and.
The
September.
second
Well, the
weekend,
parade would be downtown anyway.
in October,
No,
usually,
That's what I was trying to look.
but who knows? I mean, that's just gonna depend on your athletic director.
For what?
The homecoming.
Because of a
It's usually
parade.
in September.
Yeah, it's.
No, it is not. It's usually in October.
Yep, it's October.
Always,
Oh,
yes.
I always thought it was Anna's. Oh.
Trust me, I know,
I-
because I
I'll
help
trust
plan
you.
the
I was-
parade.
You're not denying.
I just don't think it's that late, but you
It-
never know.
I don't think
Yeah.
it'll,
It's
I never
usually
remember
never
it.
that late, usually
Right.
it's,
Yeah.
but I'd like to know for sure before we plan something like this, and we can
Something to
end
look
up with a
I,
real mess.
I know when I talked with Bar, we already told the athletic director it's not going downtown because it's in the middle of our construction season for there. So it's
Mhm.
unfortunately, unless they get done a month early.
We've done that before, though, we've had to reroute,
Right. So
but I wouldn't want it going on at the same time. I would make sure,
we will.
if we can check with them.
Yep.
So you want a motion on this?
Not necessarily. I
Okay.
just wanted to make sure you guys are good with it before I spend some time with department heads kind of working with the Foxwoods Chamber.
Okay,
You'll just keep us updated?
I will, yes.
all right. Then we will move on. F, discussion and possible action on resolution R-10-26 for court.
Sorry, 1 second. This is the resolution to approve the comprehensive outdoor rec plan, that we had at the last meeting. Is there any questions?
This just approves the plan, doesn't obligate us to do
Correct.
anything.
This is, the plan, and for those that don't know, the plan is really just used as a way that we can send off to people for grants, basically, if.
Does you have to have this in motion to get grants? The plan has to be there?
Some grants require it.
Yeah, and then any ones that don't, they always see it as a benefit if it's in there.
I'll make a motion to approve R-10-26.
A second.
Roll call, Jim?
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
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 Motion carried. G, discussion and possible action on R-12-26 to approve the 2025 compliance maintenance annual report.
So this is the annual report that we get on our wastewater treatment facility every year. It was added as an additional document. We received an A on the plant. Sean has the plant running really, really well right now. So there's no issues with anything that they tested.
Any questions? Otherwise, we would need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve R-12-26.
I'll second that.
Roll call, Jim?
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
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 Motion carried. Okay, H, discussion and possible action on rezoning ordinance O-4-26.
This ordinance went to, or this came from the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting we held last week, and a public hearing with it. The plan is basically for the football fields are going to be put in from the Hortonville Football Club. The current zoning code allows for in the residential district to build parks as well. So realistically, the zoning change doesn't do anything. So even if we denied this zoning change, the park could still go in as presented. The only difference between these two zoning changes is public institution allows for multiple accessory structures, but each accessory structure other than the ones that are presented, which in this plan is two little small utility sheds, they would have to go through a conditional use process, which would mean public hearing for anyone within 300 feet of that parcel, and that way it gives us a little bit more of a heads up to the neighbors. Typically, PI is usually in the middle of residential areas, and that's why, like schools and stuff, they have to go through that same process. Churches, nonprofits, is kind of what these are for. The other benefit of this zoning change is basically for signage. Residential districts allow only specific types of signs, and it's based on size. This allows the same thing. You can have multiple signage. and it's also conditional use. So you would have to basically do a public hearing if you wanted to add a sign in that's new. That way, the residents get their voice heard. So,
This
that's
is for the practice fields.
correct. Yep. It's a private entity. It's not anything we can really determine on what they can do with it. Like I said, if we denied it, they'd still be able to go forward with implementing it anyway, so.
In addition to the concerns that you shared here, and the Planning and Zoning Commission did make a recommendation to push it through. But after that meeting, I then got a question about, on the map, there's a reference to possible septic. And then the question came for water, and you explained it to me, but if you want to explain
Right.
that,
So-
okay.
Basically, where it's located, if we didn't allow for septic, they'd have to put in a full lift station in order for it to function. So the idea would be to allow for septic. I think a temporary well, our plan is to bring water in across the street from the McHugh subdivision once it gets down there, so then they would be on village water. But the sewer portion, it would be about as $70-something thousand to add in just a single lift station for that one parcel. Just because there's that expense doesn't mean it's we should do that. So what staff does is typically in those circumstances, we would look at what's around. So the parcels around, is there a lot of large land where we think that water and sewer would eventually go where we would get a subdivision? In this case, there's not. There's a subdivision that's already there, most likely blocking us there. There's not a large amount of property owner, like a large parcel. So there's really no benefit necessarily for us to make them put that in or us to extend our line. It's a little different than when we're on Nye Street. You don't necessarily want to have septic there because there's, 40-acre field in Hortonville that we could eventually have as subdivisions that you'd want to extend that water and sewer down to. So typically, if it's the end of the line, it's not as big of an issue. There's also a good amount of wetlands in the salt down there, and there's really not room to expand from where we're at in the salt there.
And then the water. So a temporary well, but would they be if they put in a temporary well, do they have to get a permit for that?
Yep.
And that would be granted because there really isn't water lines there now. But what forces them then to tie into the water at the McHugh Nature's Haven?
They basically would do it because of they'd have to go through a conditional use to put in bathrooms, to put in pavilion structure like they want to do eventually to have water lines.
But that's considered a private well then. So if they have a private well, what forces them to tie? That was the question I'm getting, is what
Conditional
forces
use.
them?
So if they didn't ever do anything other than what's on the plan, technically there's nothing that we could do to force them other than basically that I know of at least.
So they can put in a private well on village property? So
Well,
are they
in
allowed?
the village, technically if we allowed it,
In the village, okay,
Right.
that's what I'm saying.
technically I don't know necessarily if there's a way for us to force them after that unless they go for, let's say, conditional use where they want to put in something else. Then we can put it as a condition. We don't want you to use well water because the only reason they need the well water down there is to water the grass in the fields while they're being developed. So
I'm having a neighbor
I
that's,
get
that's
that.
questioning the hell out of this. So they're saying, wait a minute, so we all have to tie into water lines, but they can put in a private well.
And technically, once water lines are there, I should reiterate, I do
Okay.
know. Once water lines are there, we can force anyone on. So even
That's
the
what I'm
water,
looking
sorry.
for. Okay, that's what I'm looking for, is that
Yeah.
answer. So that when those water lines are in, and even though it's
We
across the
wouldn't be able to
street,
force them to abandon the well, but we could force them to be on water.
we have an ordinance regarding private wells.
Right.
Because I had to abandon a private well on my
Right,
property
and that's-
years ago.
Yes, that's something that is regulated by the state, and I think Aaron's staff not staff, but we have tracking through
Yeah.
there.
Yes. I'm only giving you the questions that I got
Right.
asked after that meeting from somebody who wasn't at the meeting.
Anyone that has a well, we can force off of it.
Okay.
So basically a Main Street project, let's say we're extending the water all the way to Greendale, we could force everyone along that route to basically hook in.
All right.
Is there
Again,
temporary well, is it potable, or is it just for watering the grass? Is it drinkable?
I doubt it. What they said is they just want it to water the grass, because otherwise they don't really have a way to put this stuff in.
Is there a required depth by the state of Wisconsin?
I don't know
but it doesn't matter as far as zoning. We're only talking about zoning tonight, but that's the questions that came up.
that. They would
After
still,
the
they would
meeting.
still have to, we would still have to do a resolution basically allowing these things.
Okay.
So that would have to come back as a resolution. So, otherwise they would be forced to put in water and sewer. We did something similar when they did phase 2 of Wildland.
I know.
They had to do that resolutions.
And then there's people that are still ticked that they're not on water and sewer in, what is it, whatever phase that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions? Otherwise, we would need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve O-4-26.
I'll second.
Roll call, Jim.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
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 Motion carried. I, discussion and possible action on amending the downtown zoning code to allow for auto service as a conditional use.
So this was brought to me and requested by the business owner that we would allow this in the downtown zoning district. So I just kind of want to walk through a timeline of what things would look like. This is being brought to you now just to see if it makes any sense to the board, if they would want to move forward with it. If they did, or wanted to at least see what it would look like, the planning and zoning board, next time they met, would have a public hearing with the changes proposed. That public hearing would be for anyone within the district. And then it would, if approved or denied at that public zoning meeting, it would go to the board for final approval or denial. If that was approved, the next step for this business owner would be to do a conditional use. And then that would go to planning and zoning for a public hearing as well, and which conditions could be put onto the property. And then approved or denied there, it would go to the village board for the final say at that point. So there's a 4-step process that would have to happen before anything was officially approved. Tonight, the question would only just be on basically the zoning code and what that would look like as a conditional use. Know that you're not just approving that one business owner, it would be anyone in the future that would want to do a conditional use for that type of use in that zoning district. So, I don't know what other questions you guys have.
I have a question. I know this is before my time, but I know there's a downtown district zoning that was made. And isn't that why we have the industrial park and then like the old toy, like all those places that are industrial? I guess, what was the purpose of the downtown district when they created it? What was the intent of that to create that downtown district? And then we got rid of Murphy's old garage, you know, they didn't have that. And I'm just curious what that intent is for that downtown.
So, and I'll let Julie correct me if I'm wrong, because she was, I think, here on that.
I was
the
on that,
task
Claire was
force.
on that. Yeah.
The idea was, I think before it was all either zoned highway commercial or general commercial. And I believe they wanted to create something that was more indicative of a downtown that had a little more restrictions on what was in there, to kind of help provide that type of historical slash, to have a better, more active downtown is my guess. Based on some of the stuff, I'll let you kind of go on it.
Well, and maybe Claire can help me out here too. So oddly enough, I just shredded a folder this thick. This was about, just to answer your question, this was about, and I can think of at least 24 hours of just meetings with it was with historic preservation, which is a commission of this board. It was with planning and zoning, this went back and forth. This was like over a year of creating this downtown zoning. And it was meant to, okay, so now we have some vacant properties. We have some, it was considered a blight district. TID number 5 was created to be a receivership TID district for that particular, so we could put money into the downtown. We've gone through Project 2020, we've done all these different things. It was the whole point of it was historic. It was also materials that are being done on buildings. We went through the list of possible conditional uses, possible, allowances and what's absolutely not allowed type of thing. And just to go back, so the old Murphy garage, which now Miles owns, that did come to the board for a conditional use. And I feel, and I tried to find the meeting minutes and stuff back from that meeting, and we did grant a conditional use at that time with the understanding that it was tied to Miles, not to the property. And now I'm learning later that it's actually tied to the property. So I regret that decision. And because I voted yes, I could actually ask for it to be brought back to the floor and to us to have re-vote on that. And I'm contemplating that. But secondly, there's no other conditional uses. There was some grandfathered. There was, I think greenhouses were grandfathered. The BP station was grandfathered. Help me out here, Claire.
That sounds right.
The BP state, because that's not a permitted use, but we understood that based on the fact that it existed, it's grandfathered. But if it's ever,
They can't rebuild it.
they can't rebuild it. If ever they decide that they're going to tear it down and start out fresh, they can't. It was a walkability thing. It was a safety. It was aesthetics. We've looked at photos from downtown districts from all over the state and outside the state. Galena, Illinois. Thank you for help reminding me on that one, Nathan. We've spent dozens of hours creating this. So the conditional use idea of putting a pole shed look and having larger vehicles back in and out and wreckers and tow trucks and all that stuff. This is not about a particular business. For me, this is about, would that be a good fit in that downtown zoning? And that's why we have industrial parks. That's why we have the incubator of the toy factory. We have outside of the village, or even within the village limits, but just on those outskirts, we have some of those appropriate areas that are appropriate for this type of thing. A light industrial used to be there, Thompson Metals. I grew up next to it. There was a lot of truck traffic, a lot of stuff going on. When that vacated that building, when they tore that building down after 2013, it opened up a lot of opportunity for that corner. Putting another industrial building was not, I think, ever the intent of this board or the historic preservation or planning and zoning.
Well, and I also think about, then I thought about the grants that we're getting
Mhm.
for the facades to be redone downtown, and how we're doing all that,
Mhm.
and we're putting all this money into downtown to make it look a certain way. And I was trying to find a way how an industrial type building's gonna look with all of that. I didn't quite see how it's gonna fit in to the plan for downtown after we're going, the bowling alley's getting that facade redone. A lot of businesses are getting changes and things are looking different. I didn't see I was trying to find the fit for an industrial building to fit into all that, and I was struggling, that's where I was struggling with it.
When was the industrial park? You guys just went through this with that whole, what am I thinking? When was the industrial park created? Approximate year, 80s, 90s?
89, the
89.
first one was, and then the second one was a little later,
And I
91.
look back, that was created so that some of those heavier industrial stuff could move out to the outskirts to keep it. There was appropriate, and we just did a comp plan all the way up to 2045. And nowhere in that does it have light industrial in the downtown. Which really, essentially, that's what we're looking at, is light industrial.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is I wouldn't concentrate on this building.
No,
that
I'm not.
is being shown, because technically it doesn't fit the code. There needs to be brick or stone as
Mhm.
part of the code, so that would have to be altered. I think this is a residential building materials, which would have to be commercial building materials. There's a few other things that would have to be changed before, and there would have to be kind of an actual layout would have to be provided. So I don't think it would necessarily be something to generally look at this, because there's a lot of other buildings that you could have, that even if it was a full brick building, that would, the only thing we're really discussing is the use, right? So
Correct.
I would try to stick to that more
That's what I'm
than
saying.
the-
So we're looking at, the gas station, and there's a recent post online, people complaining about people cutting through the gas station, whatever. That's exactly why the gas station was not part of the original permitted uses. We understand it exists. It's a viable part of that, but had it not been there, it would not have been what was desired for that corner because of the pedestrian issues that it causes. It causes issues with our, with traffic, it causes issues with our crossing guards, it causes issues, there's a lot of congestion there. When you have any kind of larger driveway and a lot of vehicles in and out or even parked there, you also lose visibility. So I'm not okay with creating a conditional use. And it has nothing to do with anybody personally, it just is, it is literally not, it was what we were trying to get away from in the downtown zoning. We have zones that are appropriate for light industrial or even like a heavier commercial business. That's my opinion, but
How much land is the county taking off of that corner also?
quite a bit,
Which you're cutting now, that's not a very big lot
quite a bit.
to begin with.
It isn't, it's not as big as people think it is. And the county is taking, because of that, we're having that triangular, what, I'm sure there's a name for it, I'm gonna screw it up, I'm not a civil engineer.
I can't remember exactly yet.
But it is quite a bit, so it's actually gonna be, it's not even, it's gonna be, and a lot of that was also a big visibility thing, right?
Because it's got that triangle and then that lane, that turn lane, that's all getting cut
As
out
someone
there.
who has ridden their bike, you know, as a child, you avoided that area because there was a lot of, you know, traffic in and out type of thing. Now as an adult, I love it, you know, where you know that you're not gonna have that. I avoid riding my bike by the BP because of the traffic in and out. People aren't looking for old ladies on bikes.
And if you look at, I think it's 0.42 acres. And if you look at outside of town, the other shop next to O'Reilly has 3 bays plus an office. I think they're 1.5 acres. So, you know, it's really putting a big building onto a small area. It seems like it's not a fit.
But it's not about that building, and I don't wanna focus on it.
No, it's not, but I mean,
To me, it's about.
we're rezoning it, or we're trying to rezone it, potentially, to be in the downtown, which it seems like that's not a very big area.
That, and we just spent, it's the actual first action I remember making as a board member 10 years ago, was this downtown zoning. And it was 10, it was 2016, Robert Schneider, I mean, I can think of everybody who's been involved, and I just shredded a huge folder with this. It was not the intent of the downtown zoning code for this type of, and that's why it's not listed as a conditional use. It was specifically not listed as a conditional use, and if I had to go back to the one conditional use that we actually did do, I'd like to rescind that. Because we assumed, we were under the understanding it was based on the current owner and the person who was taking over, who now has some sort of partnership there. But now I'm under the understanding that it could be for anybody there. And that wasn't the intent of the conditional use that was granted at the time. So don't be surprised sometime if I ask for that to come back.
There's nothing you could do with that, just a FYI, even if you try. If the current owner or prior owner is still in, or the next owner is still in compliance with that, conditional use, we cannot remove it.
I didn't have time today to go back to the videos, but I know it was specific to, Terry Dufresne sat here and Mael sat here, and it was very specific. But if I voted yes on something, if you vote yes on something, can't you, and this is a legal question probably.
So this is, I was reading exactly what the legal sent me.
Okay.
Because that question, I sent them some questions because I was concerned on that whole issue on transferring of properties, and so
And it's
this is
not about the
basically
person.
what he said. Generally, conditional use permits follow with the land. Wisconsin law does allow a municipality to place conditions in duration and transfer. Most commonly, that is in regard to potential yearly review of the permit. For transfer, you could have the matter come up at village board for review to confirm the property is still in compliance with the conditions. But if the new owner agrees to meet all of the original requirements and conditions, the board must grant the permit. So in essence, it does run with the land as long as it is in compliance.
Being that it's a large parking lot, it's created a snow removal issue for the village. And that, to me, is not the number one reason, but one of the concerns we had when we created that downtown zoning code was, if somebody has a large parking lot, where do they go with the snow removal? Like, where do they go? Do they pile it up? Now they're on their neighbor's property. That was always a big, that was actually discussed.
Right, and that you could handle yourselves by just saying you cannot, because we have an ordinance that you cannot push it onto the area.
Mhm. Just to use as an example of where an issue's come up. And it's not
No,
the
I know.
person, it's why it wasn't allowed in the downtown.
I get it.
Okay.
So I have a few issues and comments here. I thought about this for a while, and I've talked to quite a few people. First off, one of the biggest problems that I have is that we allowed almost the identical use in that property that you just spoke about. So, and we're still in the downtown, we're 1 block away. We told another business, they said, this is what we wanna do, and we said yes. So now we have a separate business that says, we wanna do almost the exact same thing. And now we're gonna tell them no. So that puts us in a position of picking who, that's not consistent. We're not, if we say no, we are not being consistent whatsoever in our policy as to how we're treating businesses in the downtown. Because we've told one yes, and then we tell another one no. So I
That was a
think that
different
puts us in a
board, too.
really bad spot.
It's a very different
That's
board,
a
but
different
also
board.
I
different
understand.
information. We were told it was
I-
only for,
I understand.
regardless,
I remember.
Jim, I'm telling you.
I remember it.
Times though.
It wasn't that long ago.
Conditional use, we've made that mistake twice, on the R1, R2, and under.
But we made that, we, and I have to go back, because I'm sure I recorded it. It was very specific, it was only to be for them. So the vote was based on misleading information, and it
I-
wasn't intentional, but it was misleading.
I understand, I'm not questioning that. And even if it was able to bring it up now, there's no way that somebody could convince me to say, we're gonna put you out of business, because we misunderstood or we were misinformed when we told you could have that business there. Now you have to close your doors. So there's no way that you could talk me in. I don't think there's any way you could talk me into saying, yeah, close your business down. Sorry, you can't. I mean, that makes about as much sense as us having a vote and saying you can't live in your house now.
You're
right? It just does-
misunderstanding
once it's
me,
allowed,
Jim.
it's
If
allowed.
I had to do it all over
I
again, I would have
understand.
voted no.
If you had to do it over again, but we're not doing it over again. So we can't decide whether or not we're gonna do it over again, and we can't decide that we're not going to give this business the same opportunity as the other business. We gave them the permission to do this. So if you wanna maintain consistency in how you treat the residents of the village and how you treat the businesses in the village, there isn't a whole lot of option there. Now, with that being said, I understand the aesthetics. And this is why I've gone back and forth and back and forth. I understand the aesthetics. That is a preference. That is a preference. I think probably all of us hold that preference. And some of the village residents as well hold that preference. But that's a preference, right?
It's a
Of what
zoning
we
code.
want it to look like, right?
It's a code.
This is what we want it to look like. But this is discriminating one against one person or one business when we favored the other. And I think that's a real problem. And not just potentially with the board. I mean, I could potentially see us in, I wish the lawyer was here, because I could potentially see us having a legal issue there. So, but.
Jim, it's not a
that's-
preference. It's literally the ordinance,
No.
it's a zoning code.
Yeah, which is purely a preference of the board. the zoning code that was created by the previous board is purely a preference of the board of how they want the downtown district to look. Everything that is created for that is pure preference, and we're not bound by that, so we don't get the choice. We as a board can change that anytime we want, so we're not bound by a previous board. So it comes down to our preference versus our consistency, and I've gone back and forth on this all week. I personally, I would say, I don't think it fits with the downtown in terms of the aesthetics, but I can't balance that on the same regard to say, we need to tell this business no. The other things that I considered were, and Jeannie and everybody's brought, and there's been a few people brought up, well, there's this area and this area. I mean, I own a business. I wouldn't want anybody telling me this is where, you could put it here, but I don't want you to put it there. I want this business to go there and not your business, so you go over somewhere else. I couldn't imagine somebody doing that. You own a business, what if somebody said, no, you can't, we don't want you there, we want somebody else
I do
there.
want to say one thing, Jim.
Yeah,
I was there when the old PD was purchased.
Mhm.
I was explicitly and multiple times told there will never be a car business in that old PD building.
Mhm.
So Claire had to pick her tenants by that rule.
Mhm.
And the rule still exists.
That was
Because that's
before
the
the
way
ordinance.
the ordinance reads.
well, that.
It
but
was the
that's-
intention and it was forced upon us.
Yes.
It's not like a preference.
No.
Now, are you gonna say, okay, Jim, now, yeah, you can have a car business too, Claire, because we changed our mind. Is that what you're gonna say?
If Claire came and said, yeah, I want a car business, I would have to say, we gave these other people a business too. What do you, I mean, how do you say no? How do you say yes to one?
Downtown.
Yeah,
You wanted,
This is
that isn't
not
the kind of
open.
downtown that the board and the village administrator and the village president. voted on.
This previous group of 7 people decided this is what they wanted the downtown to look like.
Planning and zoning, actually, which is primarily
And planning and zoning, yes.
planning and zoning, and most of those members are the same members. When I say this was over a year, this was contemplated back and forth and rehashed and run through and filtered and gone through. This, if I remember right, there were public hearings. The public gave their input on this. This wasn't just like we pulled it out of our pocket one day and said, we prefer the downtown look. It was 100%. There was also some grants that we've applied for the downtown that are, right? So like when I think of the facade improvement things that have gone through, I think of Memorial Square, that's a grant. We have a downtown, I remember the purpose of creating it was, first of all, to clean up the code, because the code was a mess. We had a hodgepodge, a zipper of different types of things down there. But also with the idea that the highway was gonna be bypassed. And now we have this opportunity to create this aesthetic and give anybody who is looking to purchase a building downtown, an idea of what's coming in the future, right? Restaurants, retail, we have bars, we have things that these are the permitted uses. So people buying these buildings, knowing that this is the aesthetic down here. But a big part of it was human safety of the walkability and being able to walk. That intersection, which again, we're talking about a zoning code, we're not talking about a specific parcel, we all know what we're talking about, is such a busy area. Would this all have to go through planning and zoning? Like the plans, everything like that? I don't even think it would even pass based on the size and based on the,
Technically, it doesn't need to pass planning and zoning.
okay, the building, what you're saying.
Well, so the conditional use, the building design would have to come in to that conditional use. So
Okay.
then planning and zoning would have the opportunity, but in the end, it ends up in the board's hands regardless of what planning and zoning says or does. So planning and zoning could put a bunch of stuff on it
Mhm.
that you would have to do, and then the board could just say no, or say we want to do more, or we want to deny, or we want to continue on and go forward. So the board has the final say for conditional use and for the zoning code.
Yeah, we
Change.
literally created a section of the village that was meant for less traffic, more foot traffic, safety, visibility and an aesthetic. We sat here and hashed out for how many hours looking at lighting, for God's sake. You know, think of that, the lighting engineer. I just think light industrial and changing a zoning code to put light industrial as a conditional use, because it's still got to go through approvals and stuff. However, there's some things that could just slide through. I just think light industrial is such a different zoning code than a downtown zoning. If this was, it's next to commercial, but it's not. It is next to a downtown historic district. In fact, if I remember, it was like we had to do chapter 24, whatever it was, with the historic preservation. I remember this. There was like requirements that we had to do for historic preservation. It wasn't like we just pulled this out of our pocket. And I understand what you're saying, Jim, but when we agreed to do that conditional use, we were misinformed at that time. And that also is a very different section. It's a different part of the downtown. It is not as busy of an intersection. It is not, there's taller buildings nearby. So it's not like it's nothing and then all of a sudden there's just this big building. I don't know.
One of the things that I did print out, because I looked up different conditional use permissions, and it says, it allows the village board to ensure the business does not create visual blight, excessive noise, or parking issues, which if you go down on the other end of town, he has no parking issues. I've never heard anything about noise, because he doesn't do that much there. He mostly did motorcycles when he started out and things like that. The visual blight, it's not that busy of an intersection compared to Nash and Main. Mill and Main is not busy, so there was another reason that he got his conditional use.
And it was with conditions, remember?
Yes, and then we did put, and conditions can be put on it once it goes through planning and zoning, and if it would pass and different things like that. So, there's a lot of what ifs here about that Main and Nash. It's, like you said, it's a very busy intersection.
Okay.
It's a human safety issue right now.
It is.
And I'm so looking forward to people being able to cross there or to be able to ride their bicycles or scooters or walk without the fear of somebody backing into them.
Well, okay, so I can address, so let me start with saying this, right? I personally don't think it's a great location, okay? I personally don't think that it fits, right? So I am pretty much in agreement with everybody on those 2 points. So you can say it over and over again. I already agree. Everybody here already agrees. Okay, the problems that I have are the parking. So let's start with the parking, right? Eventually, I don't know how long, but eventually something or some things are going to go in that lot. Okay, which means that there will be cars driving in there, very likely. It is a fairly large lot.
Based on what's permitted.
Something that is going to go in there is probably going to have a parking lot, and even if you put in your retail, so even if you put in a knick-knack shop or anything like that, you're going to have cars that are going in there to park, right? You're going to have traffic going in and out. You're going to have people backing out. So the concern that you're going to have a driveway there isn't specific to this business.
Types of vehicles. If I'm going to a restaurant, am I driving a car or a truck? If I'm going to an auto repair place that needs a facility large enough and tall enough for large trucks, that's a different type of vehicle backing up.
Vehicles that get fixed are vehicles that people drive. So, and they drive them to shops and they drive them to get fixed. This is nothing different from one business to another business, right? I have my truck parked outside. If I drive my truck someplace to get it fixed, that's my truck driving there and backing out. If I drive it someplace to go shopping, it's my truck driving in there and driving out.
There's a vacancy in the building that we permitted of conditional use. But I am told that vacant building, because that's, if you look, it's for rent. I am told that that's just not big enough.
Okay, all right, so, and that's veering off here.
No, it isn't.
This it is. This is telling a business, you should go over here. I should make the decision of where your business should be, and I think this is a better spot for you. Now, do I agree with you? Absolutely. I agree that that's a better spot. Not my business, not our place to tell them that you should go here, right? Our only choice is to say whether or not we can change this particular zoning.
But if
We don't
someone
get to
is
say,
saying
you
to
should
me-
go over here, you should go over there, you should go, this is better for your business, this is better for your business.
Jim, but if
That's
someone
not an
says
option
to
we have.
me, what it currently exists there, which is a certain building height, certain garage height, what currently exists there isn't big enough for me.
Okay,
This is what I'm trying to say. So that's not big enough. So we're looking at this going, well, we permitted it. Well, the garage doors are a certain height. The roof line is a certain height. Okay, and if I remember right, the reason why we included that building in it is because it's Frank Lloyd Wright's son who designed as the architect on the building, and some of the features hidden that you can't see are part of the whole Frank Lloyd Wright thing. I can go into history if you want me to do this. What I'm trying to say is, when that's been offered, that's not big enough. So here we've permitted someone because there's a certain roof height, there's a certain garage door height, but that's not big enough. So now you look at that, and now we're talking light industrial. So now you're lifting up the garage doors, you're lifting up the ceiling height or the roof height. That's what I'm trying to say. So there's a vacancy. I'm not trying to tell someone where to put their business, but they're saying that that is not big enough, which that tells me that that particular building, which, okay, the height, now you're looking at, what are you looking at here for height? What are you looking at here for size of garage doors? What size of trucks are you servicing? Is very different than what's on Mill.
okay, so now we're extracting further into what the building design is, and we don't have a design. We don't have that.
We don't.
We can guess,
But we know
don't
that
have.
Mill Street is too small. So
Yeah,
that tells me
I understand.
that it would have to be larger,
And
which
that's
is light
what-
industrial.
This is what planning and zoning and the public hearing stuff is for. Because we don't have that information, so we can't debate it. All we know is they said this doesn't fit, this isn't big enough, maybe it's not wide enough, maybe it's not deep enough, maybe it's not tall enough, I don't know. Okay, but it still leaves the fact that we are, almost all of the things that have been brought up are specific to any business that's gonna go in there, right? So the question is, does this board agree with the preference of the type of buildings and businesses that go down? Do they agree with the previous board from, was about 15 and 18 years ago, right? Somewhere in there, 15? Oh,
I've been on the board for 10 years.
okay, 10 years ago.
But isn't that why we have the different zone districts set up? We have industrial, we have downtown, we have residential, we have commercial. That's why you have the zone set up, so that's where, like, you wouldn't have someone want to go into a residential neighborhood, which, and say, I want to open a store. We wouldn't, I mean, basically what we're doing is saying, well, regardless of the zoning, you can come and get a conditional permit and request one to do whatever area. But that's why we set up these districts. We set up the industrial district, so you have a zoning area that's zoned for industrial stuff. You do whatever you wanna do in an industrial zone. Or if it's a residential, you could, with it, I'm just saying, those districts are set up for a reason. So, and I get what you're saying, that the previous board
Yeah.
allowed that to happen.
Mhm.
And I don't know all the conditions of what they have in the other address. But,
The motorcycle repair shop,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I know, I've heard them.
yeah.
I hear them all the time. So, I'm right behind it, so I hear it all the time. I hear whatever goes on there. But still, it was given, it was done, the board did it. But there are appropriate places in the village to have what you're looking for. If you're looking to build a house, you're not gonna go to the industrial park and say, can I get a conditional permit to build a house in the industrial park?
You can ask,
Right, but
yeah.
I'm just saying, based on, do what previous boards do, then say, well, then I guess we should let them build a house up there, because we've let a business do industrial in downtown, you know what I'm saying? You
No,
could-
yeah, well,
you
okay,
could
using
go both ways
that,
with that,
if,
with that.
if the board, say, 2 years ago before you were on the board, 3 years ago before you were on the board, allowed a house to be built in there was some vacant lot in the industrial park.
Yeah.
And they allowed a house, they allowed residents to be built there. right? So somebody came in and said, we wanna build a house here, and they said, okay, yeah, well, you know, we have conditions, but you can build a house there, right? Now, fast forward 3 years later, there's another empty lot in there, and somebody comes to
Right.
us and says, I wanna build a house there.
Right, but at some point.
And then we say, no, they could build a house, but you couldn't build a
But at
house, sorry.
some point, so now we've kind of gone willy-nilly with it,
Now
and
we're
it's like,
green
it's a
belt.
free-for-all.
Different.
What-
I
what-
just-
yeah, It's not a free-for-all, I'm saying we allowed the same business.
2, 3.
We
Curiosity, when
allowed
you
the same
rezone,
thing.
does it mean
And it puts us in-
anyone
it
in
puts
the
us in a-
general
a
downtown
sticky
area can now
spot.
build a auto body shop
Yeah.
downtown?
Very sticky.
And that's what,
So,
If you rezone,
so if
or
we
is this
change,
just for that parcel?
if we, so for this, it would be changing the zoning code for the whole downtown district. And they would all, any parcel in that downtown district would be able to apply for a conditional use similar to this parcel for, any of those conditional
Let's
uses.
just say a
So,
strip club.
what-
So I
what
want
did
to run a strip club downtown,
Wait,
so
wait,
even though it's
let's-
not
let's
allowed.
not,
I mean, you know what I'm saying? You
Yeah,
say,
let's-
go and say, I want to
let's-
start
I'll go to
this
Jeannie's
business or
strip
that
club.
business. You're changing the whole
no,
code.
I'm just, let's,
No,
I'm
gotcha.
trying to,
Yes, so if you rezone, it's not for a specific.
It's not a
parcel
rezone,
rezone, the
it's
general
a-
area
There was.
zoning.
There
It's
was.
amending the
We
zoning
had a
code.
strip club.
So the zoning code has a downtown district and has a specific code, and if you add this in as a conditional use, any of the businesses could use that, or any of the parcels could use that conditional use, but they would have to apply for it. So let's say you guys approved the conditional use in that code district, she could have someone who's coming in apply for a conditional use to do a, auto service shop similar to this one, if that's allowed.
Everybody could.
Granted, there is also, each of them are separate issues,
Mhm.
so the conditions on that could be different for
Mhm.
each of them. Because you gotta take into consideration a bunch of different things, health, safety, all this other stuff. But that's kind of how that works.
so how did we allow the motorcycle repair shop without,
I remember that night.
without amending,
Without-
without making that amendment?
Without impacting the whole downtown district, how did that come about, that giving them the
It was
conditional?
applied
impact
for,
everybody?
I think, I'm trying to remember back, I don't know dates exactly, cause it was in 2021.
I tried looking for the meetings to refresh my memory, because I remember
can-
Terry
I
Dufresne
could
was
always
here.
grab it. My guess is, I think, from my memory, it had a lot to do with, we changed the zoning code. Terry Dufresne had a parcel that then was unusable, that he was trying to sell. And at the time, basically, the board thought that having that as a conditional use for that person would at least allow him to get
It
to.
facilitated the sale.
Right.
Yeah, I remember.
It was that, but there was also the part of, so the building was already built. And this building,
Right.
because of the way the building is built and because of the fact that the garage was technically not on Main, it was on Mill, but the reason why that was included was because of the historic. It was that nothing facing Main was gonna be like open shop doors, backing in and out, whatever. That was a big part of it, but I also remember it was, I will never have more than X amount of vehicles, and if they are, they're gonna be here. But I remember a big part of that was because the building already existed. And it was just gonna be a vacant building if we didn't grant that conditional use. And we said, well, as long as somebody's able to use it, sure. And not realizing at the time it was making it more permanent. But this is a vacant piece of land. There's so much retail, there's restaurant, there's so many things that could go in there. And granted, I would hope you'd recognize that I have a pretty big interest on what
No,
the,
I completely
staring at the back
recognize
of a
that.
building.
It's right
I've
next to
done
your
it.
house, yeah.
I've done it. Most of my life was looking. Would I want the privacy? Absolutely. Would a building just be easy? Absolutely. Is it the right fit? No. I'm part of the downtown zoning, my home, because of what we had planned in the future for our property. I'm considering rezoning it to residential just because our plans have now changed. But even then, looking at the back of a building, absolutely, I get my privacy back. But really, in the downtown, would I rather retail or restaurant or something in there that is foot traffic in there? Yes, there's a parking lot or whatever. I know at one point Walgreens looked at it. I know other places looked at it. The whole point is to try and get it where there's people moving. There's multiple people through the hour, in and out. Or like a retail, like I said, a restaurant. I know restaurants, somebody looked at it for a restaurant at one point.
I remember Walgreens was somebody was looking at to put a Walgreens there. And if they put a Walgreens there, you're talking about even more traffic than
Correct.
what you would see for a repair shop.
Correct.
So that's even a bigger.
Yeah.
But my point is that all these other little issues, you're going to run into them with any business. And the biggest problem that I have with the aesthetics, right, is because this is what comes out. It doesn't look like what we want, what people would want in the downtown, right? This is what it comes down to is we don't want it to look like this. But I look at the downtown and I'm like, I was playing devil's advocate the other day, and I'm like, the front of the old Hardtails looks like crap. It's got an abandoned entrance that's fallen apart, that the windows are covered up for years. The building across the street, I can't remember what that was. And when it burned, I was in Hardtail. I was in the bar when it burned, when it was on fire,
The
burned
old
it down.
white store.
Yeah, that looks horrible. I mean, they put up like makeshift greenhouses, and they got weeds growing everywhere.
But see,
and
that's
stuff
not
out
a
of
permitted
control,
use. That
I-
was
yeah.
because those greenhouses existed
Yeah,
when the code went into place.
yeah.
If
but
ever that person or that business vacates that property, the new owner
can't do that.
can't do that.
Yeah.
Correct. That's why a greenhouse isn't a permitted use.
Yes, but so I look at some of the other stuff that's downtown, and I mean, some of the buildings downtown do have some historical characteristic to them. I would say maybe 70%, 75%. The other 25% down there, they don't fit aesthetically with the rest of the downtown. So this is where I have the other problem in telling somebody building this, I have no idea what it's going to look like yet, and maybe you could make it look a certain way, but I don't know what it's going to look like, and I could tell you no, you can't do it because I think it might not fit.
So to answer that question,
Yeah,
if the ownership hasn't changed, whoever was there and owned a particular building or a series of buildings or
Yeah.
whatever, until they sell that building and the new owner comes in, it can look that way.
yeah,
We had a red, white, and blue building. Remember Wiesner? Remember he had that big red, white, and blue stripes, right? So that changed ownership, and now it's not red, white, and blue. Remember the big?
yeah.
Yeah. So those buildings, if they're owned by the same people or the same LLC and the ownership hasn't changed over, they can look that way. But once a new owner comes in, that's where the zoning code was like, okay, we know it might take 20 years for the whole downtown to really have this aesthetic feeling. To have that, I mean, I think of going through downtown Wanakee, going through downtown Galena, I think of some of these really cool historic downtowns. But somebody has taken that action to create that zoning code to prevent a bunch of industrial, and because that's what happened. Hortonville had a lot of industrial stuff. And then they created this industrial park. And all of a sudden,
Well, this isn't
like
truly
Cape Thompson and all that,
industrial park
like,
stuff.
I think of like we have this other blight area, the old canning factory,
Mhm.
right? So that's zoned what, light industrial right now?
No industrial.
Industrial. So it's zoned industrial. So that's an area that deemed at one point that was industrial, whatever. And at some point, maybe we, but as long as the owner stays, let's say we changed that to residential, which we're not, and don't quote me doing that. But let's say we wanted to change that to an R1 zoning district. As long as that person still owns it, there's nothing we can do. It's once it changes ownership. So downtown, yes, there are buildings but it's an evolution. It's not overnight, just everyone had to comply with this. It wasn't anticipated as that. I mean, you remember this, Claire? Because we looked at different buildings and we were like, okay, this is definitely a historic, this is not, but you know what, until it changes ownership, it is what it is. It's how it's gonna look.
Also, it's taken a long time for Main Street to get a new Main Street, and a lot of us have done nothing for quite a while because we know it's going to be darn dirty downtown. So do you really want to spend all kinds of money on a facade when they're going to tear it all up, lower the street, a foot? It's going to be a huge dusty mess.
Yeah,
I need to do things, I'm not doing them till they're done. I'm not going through all that work and then having everything be dirty again.
I know there's other people that want to replace their front windows, but they're not doing it, what building I'm thinking of. They wanna do it, but they're waiting. People are waiting for
It
this to
probably
be
looks
done.
as bad as it has looked for quite a while this summer. It looks rough downtown.
It's like my front yard. My front yard looks like hell this year because
Well, everything's-
half it's getting torn up.
And I think everybody put that on hold, even the ones that got the grant money,
Yeah, but we didn't get any yet, 'cause
They-
we gotta do the work.
because we put it on hold because
Yeah.
of the construction.
Yeah,
So of course, downtown's gonna look a
it
little,
looks a little rough.
little rough.
When the economic development, and I don't know who's on that, but when you guys looked at those applications, pictures and stuff were submitted. Because that's the aesthetic, that's the look we're looking for. And is that based on preference? Well, maybe, but that preference was put it into the zoning code.
It's absolutely based on preference.
There's
That's
only
all it's based
2
on.
blocks of
I
downtown. There's
understand.
all kinds of places in Hortonville and 2 blocks of
I
downtown.
understand.
It's a very small percentage.
Yeah, I get it.
So
I get it.
go over there.
I'd like to, I mean, I'm not okay with allowing the conditional use of a auto business, because I just don't feel that it's the right fit. So I don't know, is that you're looking for a motion, what are we?
We would probably have to have a motion.
I have one other point here, and this is less important, but I do have one other point, is that lot, the one, I don't know what they're doing with that one that burned down. And then the lot next to Century have been empty
Yes.
for a long time. And without any potential, I mean, we finally got somebody, I don't know, probably the 3rd or 4th now, potential to fill up that one empty lot that we've been trying to utilize, next to Century. So,
So that
If-
empty
if-
lot
if-
on the corner, there has been some interest.
it's been empty for a long time.
But it's also owned by somebody that isn't, they can pick and choose what they want to sell to.
Mhm.
But there has been some interest, and I don't know the circumstances, but that owner of that parcel isn't here, so
Mhm.
we can't ask questions, because this wasn't about a parcel, this is about that whole downtown zoning.
Yep.
But I believe that once things are done in the downtown, that's actually a hot commodity property. I really do. I really feel like there's been people that have asked me, what do you think about this business? Do you think this would work there? And I'm like, but they want to wait and they want to see, once that downtown's done, like, they want to see how much of that lot is also ripped up. Like, because that whole corner is shaved down. And there's been people that have asked me, do you think this would do really well there? Well, my parents had a business for 50 years downtown. I can tell you what it would work 50 years ago, right?
Yeah.
But there is interest. I just think people are waiting until that construction is done, especially knowing that that corner is getting eminent domain shaved. So to your point,
Yeah.
I get it. I hear you, that empty lot. And then there's the white store, but that was purchased by somebody. They put something in there prior to the zoning code going in. It's grandfathered. If they ever vacate that property, then whoever fills that property needs to follow whatever is in the zoning code. Whether that be a building or whatever they decide to do, but it has to fit within these, here's your parameters. Am I mistaken on this? I mean,
No. I mean, there's many things in the zoning code that are allowed.
very much
There's a
so.
lot of possibilities
Very much
for
so.
that. I mean,
I've said my piece. I mean, I think we're being inconsistent. I think we're picking and choosing. I think we allowed somebody else to do almost the identical identical business, almost an identical style building, literally one block away in the same district.
Miles didn't build it though.
Doesn't matter, they built it. We allowed that use. We didn't have to allow that use. It wasn't
Well,
zoned
now
for
we're
it.
in a-
We, as the board,
But it was
changed
an
the zoning and said, you can use it for that. We made that choice and said,
They don't
yes.
think
He
that's
came to us and said, can we do it? Went to planning and zoning, came to us, and we said yes.
Much larger.
Your whole,
With
all,
your
and I get it, I hear you. Everything you're saying, it's almost the same, it's almost this, it's almost that, but it's not the same. It's different. It's not the exact same thing that we're talking about. There's differences between the two, is what I'm saying. You're saying it's almost the same, we did almost the same thing.
It's, it's a mechanical repair shop.
It doesn't exist.
What do you mean it doesn't exist?
It's an empty lot. It doesn't exist.
It's the same question put before us.
We made a mistake
Can-
the first time. I got a feeling.
Based on in a
Can this be
vacant,
done?
empty
This is the
building.
question put before us. Can this be used for this? That was the same question that was put before us with the other property.
Because it was already an existing building. If somebody came to me and said, we have an existing building downtown, let's say we wanna take the old bakery, we wanna turn it into an auto shop. No, the answer is no. It's not it doesn't fit into the zoning code, right?
And it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. This is, yeah.
Nothing exists there. So you can make that argument for anything. So
then Claire can turn her building back into a car place. And she can,
Claire could ask to do that, and we would have to debate it.
and then we could go back and you could find minutes, I'm sure, in meetings that it was explicitly forbidden.
By a previous,
Explicitly.
yes, by a previous
Well, you know
board,
what?
yes.
That doesn't give a business owner or a commercial property owner very much confidence if just any board can change anything at their whim.
That's life. That's the way the board works.
Well,
We
it is the law.
We can't restrict later boards.
Well,
And
I don't
previous
think
boards
that's
can't restrict
a
us.
great idea to be disrespectful of previous
It's not being
boards.
disrespectful, that's the
It
system.
kind of is.
That's the system.
It's
Rules are made
disrespectful. People
and rules are
make
changed.
money
and that's what we're here
decisions
for.
based on a board's decision. And then you go down the road and then you go, oh no, we don't mean that. Except all the people still own all the buildings. So now,
I understand
this
your
guy's
point.
gonna have a conditional use and that guy's gonna have a conditional use.
I understand your point.
I don't think so.
No, I do. I completely
No, I
understand
mean,
your
I don't
point.
think it's-
But
I think no.
when you go into an area and you create your business, you go in with an understanding that this is what it is now, and municipal governments, county governments, state governments, federal governments, they can all make changes down the road. And that's part of life, and that's part of doing business and part of where
This
you're
is
at.
Hortonville.
I
This is
understand
not
that.
Madison or Milwaukee.
They
This
have the
is
same
2
rules, though.
blocks
We
of
all have the same
downtown.
rules.
It's
It
not the
doesn't-
same thing. There's
This-
not
it-
all kinds of extra blocks of commercial property. That we can just, we'll just get rid of this block because we got 47 blocks of commercial property.
What does that matter?
That's what you're doing. You're
No, that's
taking a
not what
piece
I'm
of
doing.
commercial property
No.
and you're turning it into industrial.
No, you're taking a decision for our downtown and comparing it to Madison and bigger cities. No,
It's
we
all
have,
percentage.
No.
It's a percentage.
yeah, it's a percent. Okay, sure, it's a percentage.
We
But
can
we
beat a
have,
dead horse here, but I'm gonna make a motion to defer, amending the downtown zoning code to allow for auto service, so amending, no, we're not amending the downtown zoning code. I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Roll call, Jim.
Nick,
Aye.
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 Motion carried. 10, report of village officials. A, clerk treasurer, Jane.
My report was in the packet. We did receive the ballots for the August 11th primary. So those were sent out today for people that have an application for an absentee ballot on file. Lauren has gone over the website.
Yeah,
It's all up to code with
she was bebopping with me the other day.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. So I'm not sure if that person looked it up under an old browser or the old website. I'm
I
not
don't
sure,
know.
but she's constantly updating our website.
Okay, yeah.
She's, yeah.
Any
Other than that-
questions for Jane? Okay,
Just
we'll
can,
go to
sorry,
beat director.
can we make sure that the next Village Voice has my updated information?
Yes, we
Thank you.
talked, yep. Yes.
Okay, B, director of public works, Aaron.
My report was in the packet. For those of you that were at the public meeting for Main Street, just wanted to let everybody know, we did receive a new project manager from Bidden to take on the project. I met him today. We found a place for the job trailer. It's gonna be located by the Black Otter Garage. And went through all the different public meetings and everything, went through the bridge replacement and all he seems up to speed and ready to go, so I'm
Where's
not
he
concerned
from?
with it. He's just another Vinton employee.
Right, but the other guy that was here today said, oh, I'm local, I'm from Shiocton.
Yeah, no, he's no longer, the project manager for that project anymore.
Where's the
Just wanna let
Black Otter-
everybody know, but I think we're still in good hands.
Where's the Black Otter garage? You mean like,
Down by our plant,
okay,
so they're gonna have a job trailer there.
The Bold and Village
that,
Garage.
okay,
Yeah.
cause I'm thinking, okay, wait a minute, like that Black Otter.
Black
Harbor
Otter
Club,
Lake
what are we-
District
yeah,
Garage.
Yeah.
Did
Okay.
they come up with do they have like a stage, because they're gonna bring in the equipment before they do this, right? Do they have a staging area where they're bringing the equipment into?
Have not discussed any of that with
Okay,
us yet.
I'm just concerned about, dropping the heavy equipment onto other streets and, cause you're not gonna drop it on Main Street, cause then you're gonna block all the traffic right away, because you're bringing it in before you stage it before you get started. But then if you drop it in off of on the side street, you're talking about dropping really heavy equipment onto a side street.
I would assume that those conversations are gonna be had between now and January sixth when they start.
Okay.
And I'm
July
gonna,
6th.
For July
July
6th.
I'm like, shit, we got pushed back to
Yeah.
January. Oh my
July
God.
6th.
and I'm gonna be the broken record, only cause I never really did hear the answer the other night. So, is the intersection, like, gonna be done?
Fully open, but
Fully open, but, so a detour could potentially be flooding through there?
yeah, I mean, I would say the detour we're getting now is very limited. We haven't noticed really, I mean, we've noticed a slight uptick, but it's really had very little effect on that road. But yeah, I mean, that's,
All the same things are still in the contract according to that.
Okay, so, okay. So I know I felt like an idiot the other night, cause everyone stared at me like I was,
well, yeah,
Three
we tried to talk with the county and have the county try to get them to try to have that done before, obviously, August 31st,
Yeah.
so that it wouldn't be an issue, but
I got a lot of blank stares. That's why I was clarifying with you guys, cause I figured you guys knew. Thank you.
I don't know if you can, do you fix the curbs when they break, or there's on, I was out walking and on Florence, the cul-de-sac back there, there's about a 1 foot section of the curb that's like a big wedge that's just like falling off into the road. I don't know if those are fixable or not, but before it gets worse and washed away and you have to redo a curb kind of thing, I don't know if you can.
We got a list of a couple different ones.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll go to C, Police Chief. And Brian is out tonight, but his report was in the packet. And then D, Library Director, Ally is out tonight. E, the attorney is also out tonight. And then we are at F, Administrator. Nathan?
my report was in the packet. Spent a decent amount of time this week talking with some developers on some properties in the village and people looking at buying certain things. Don't really have a lot of information on that right now, but yeah. Other than that, just kind of working through Main Street stuff and yeah.
When is the temporary road for Nature's Haven gonna be? I learned the hard and dirty way that it wasn't finished.
It's pretty much finished.
Not what I went through.
Well, I mean, it stops basically at Gale.
No, it wasn't that far yet. I came up to it was a rainy evening, and I learned the hard way not to. Yeah, I had to be real creative at backing up.
So at Gale, it turns into like a kind of a dirt road, and then mud is what it is right now up there. But yeah, there's still basically that's where it ends.
Well, it wasn't wide enough for a Y turn, so I
No.
learned how to back up real fast,
Yeah,
real slow.
It's
Yeah. Okay.
it's a one-way road pretty much.
No call from the PD. The hell is she doing now? Okay, I was just curious
Yeah.
with the road. I thought I'm gonna try it out, and then it wasn't like.
Yeah, it's not. I wouldn't suggest anyone to drive on it.
No, thank you.
Construction.
I know that now.
Construction access road. big
Right.
equipment.
So
I have.
we've driven on it with our police SUVs a few times when I went with Brian through there.
I have an off-road mode on my car. I figured that
Yeah,
one.
we
It actually
didn't
works
even
quite
try
well.
that.
No, it was an off-road mode. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Sorry, I just was curious when it's going to be done, but you're saying it's done now.
Technically, yes, because they're basically taking the equipment from there and going north. They're not necessarily taking the other routes to get in there. So
Okay.
they're going to be, because that's part of that first phase is kind of looping that area. So they'll put all those roads in, and
Okay.
it'll connect to that, and it'll be pretty much
All right.
an access point
Thank
then
you.
from then on.
And it's too bad you all missed it, because I'm sure it was very entertaining.
Mm.
So.
You know, you
Next
said
time,
we're
take a
gonna
video.
start documenting for the county on the corner of Nash and Oak.
I don't know if it's necessary anymore. I didn't, the last time I talked to them, they said that they were gonna try to do something. I haven't gotten updates on what that is, or if that was just something else, but we're still working on our side to see about, a form that we can put on our website, but yeah.
I followed someone who just went right through the stop sign.
Yeah, I did too today.
And then, yeah, I had 3 near misses this week, so I was gonna document them for you.
So at what point are we just asking for forgiveness and not permission?
On what? I mean, the problem is it's not as simple as just putting a stop sign on the corner, because it's too far away from the access
know.
point. It
Just, I'm assuming there's a certain like length it has to be.
Well, I
yeah,
guess you
the-
mentioned something that the village could maybe do some things on our own, but it, like with the traffic, I don't even know what our next step is, and if so, it's a good.
I can get
kind of-
clarification from the county on what that meant when they were kind of like, we were planning on working on that this year, or this next year. So I think in 27 they're planning on doing something, but I don't know what that means. So they were just in the middle of budget, and I gotta get clarification before I really say anything at this point, so, I can probably bring it back at the next meeting.
Okay, thank
Or
you.
I'll-
I think it,
Or I can update in my weekly or bi-weekly updates.
I think having a light at the end of the tunnel on that would be nice.
Mhm. Any other questions for Nathan? Okay, we'll go to G, building permit report. The May report is in the packet. H, any other miscellaneous topics for future discussion? Are there any? Okay, 11, communication and miscellaneous business. A, Black Otter Lake District News. Is there anything new, Shelton or Aaron? No? Okay. B, Hortonville, Hortonia Fire District News.
We
Jim?
ripped up a lot. The parking lot, well, most of it is ripped up, so the construction work has started on replacing the lot.
Okay. C, Gold Cross Ambulance Run Report News. There is none. D, Hortonville Civic Association. Jane?
Nothing new.
Okay. E, Senior Activities. Treese?
We worked on the menu for the Autumn Fest at our last meeting. The activity schedule for the summer is posted online and in several locations throughout the village, and there are lots of activities planned.
Okay. We'll go to 12, comments and suggestions from citizens present. Are there any? Okay. 13, I would need a motion to go into closed session. Go for it, Jane.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session under state statute 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business, whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Potential purchase agreement for parcel number 240-000-400.
I'll second that.
Roll call, Jim.
Aye.
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 Motion carried. 14, we would need 5 minutes recess to clear the meeting room. 15, any action on matters discussed in closed session? There are none. 18, I would need a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. It is now 8:24.